In fact, I had a little look back to see what I'd already presented via blogs or videos in this area, because, you know, why reinvent the wheel? And I found a video that I did really early on in the first lockdown here in the UK, and was looking at what I felt were the most important issues to be talking about in regards to teenagers and their health. And one of the most important things that I felt was that they needed to be focusing on fibre and consumption of fibre. Fibre, of course, being such an, I think, under-recognised in terms of its importance in everyone's diet, but particularly in teenagers, where they're just not getting a sufficient amount. I don't think necessarily people, or teenagers particularly, make the connection between the sorts of foods that contain fibre and why it's important. So thinking about the gut health, of course, 70% of the immune system within the gut. So fibre is a really important thing to try and ensure that the gut is working well, that it's, you know, tip-top condition. And if we look at how much fibre we're supposed to be eating, 25 grams per day, and teenagers typically are somewhere literally in the teens in terms of grams, sometimes lower than 10. Where are they going to get it from? Well, even in a half a tin of baked beans, you're going to get 9 grams of fibre, so that really does help contribute. But any one of your portions of fruit and vegetables, about 3 grams, there or thereabouts. You know, that's a bit of an oversimplification, but let's make it easy for people. So there's another reason for at least 5 a day, and ideally it would be majority vegetable and some fruit. So fibre would certainly be one of them. And then hydration. I don't know how many other people find this, but teenagers are shockers for not drinking enough. When they're at primary school, it does tend to be a little bit more of a focus, and teachers tend to take a little bit more of control over how frequently children consume water, are allowed to go to the fountain, or allowed to refill bottles, or how often they're allowed to sip on their bottles. But when it's left to teenagers to make up their own mind about that, they seem not to drink as much. So they can sometimes go through a whole school day of not drinking a sufficient amount of water. And that can really affect their levels of concentration, but of course affect every system in the body. So I recommend that they should be drinking a sufficient amount of liquid, that they are weeing 8 times a day. And some teenagers look at me with their mouths open and think, how would I be doing that? Like I've got time for that, but they've got time for many other things. I don't think it's that difficult to go to the loo 8 times. And looking at the colour of their pee, which, you know, might make some giggle, but it should be no darker than the colour of straw. And so just finding whatever it is that is of interest to what they want to drink. It might be adding some lemon, some lime, some cucumber. It might even be putting in some proper fruit cordial, not the kind of low sugar stuff which often contains ingredients that you wouldn't necessarily want to be consuming, including sweeteners and things. Vitamin D, of course, particularly at this time of year, we're not going to be getting the vitamin D that we need from the sun. Teenagers, particularly if they're going to school in the dark, some of them coming home in the dark, not necessarily going out during the day, and then in the evening they might be at home just, you know, playing games or doing their homework. So if they're not going to get vitamin D from its primary source, which is the sun, then where else can they get it? Certainly from oily fish, but again, I know teenagers are not the most likely to want to eat oily fish. But they might consume things like egg yolks, dairy. They might even consume some foods that have been fortified, but you may want to think about supplementing. And I have found teenagers to be most open to the concept of supplementing with a spray. So you spray it into your mouth and it's absorbed that way. And then the final one is not so much, you know, vitamins and minerals, but more of a kind of an approach, which is about making sure that they maintain a balanced blood glucose. And I think it's such an important element of health when it comes to concentrating, when it comes to managing weight, when it comes to managing metabolism, is making sure that they're not living. I mean, a friend of mine shared on their social media the other day a picture of a drawer in her son's bedroom. And she's just literally all these wrappers from chocolate bars and, you know, crisp packets, and just said, why do teenagers need this? And they do, they want the quickest fix. They want the simple. They're growing and the body goes, oh, what's the quickest thing to give me energy? Well, it's going to be something that's, you know, going to break down quickly into sugars. But of course that isn't helpful in the long run. It might fix the immediate problem, but hopefully the immediate problem wouldn't have existed if you'd have eaten particularly well to start with. So it's about helping your teenager understand where they find proteins and complex carbohydrates and the right kinds of fats, that they don't end up getting those pangs for, you know, a grab pack size of crisps, or whatever the extra large size of chocolate bar is now known as.